Welcome to episode 48 of the Minot Business Podcast presented by Bennett Creative Media. I'm your host, Easton Bennett, and on the show today, we have Krista Marshall. Krista, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. That was definitely the first take of the intro. We didn't screw up before that. I didn't screw up before that. That was definitely the first take. Before we get started, if you have not already, please rate and review the show. If you could take 5 seconds to leave us a rating and review, it really helps spread the word to new audiences and attract new guests for you guys each and every week. And we really appreciate the support. Support. Krista, let's get into the questions here. So for someone that has never met you, they don't know what you do, they don't know what you're all about, what is your shtick? What's your elevator pitch?
I'm a business owner in Minot here. We have a couple different businesses. I come from a business family. So I definitely didn't create it all from scratch. So I can't take credit for that. But I guess my profession is managing the businesses that we have and kind of pushing that as we move forward. I was raised at Schatz Crossroads Truck Stop, both of them, the old one and the old Crossroads, and then the Econo Stop that eventually turned into one location, which is Schatz Crossroads now. I tell people that there was the same people, the regulars, sitting there on the day that I was born and the day that I graduated from high school and moved away. So it's, if anybody knows about the old Crossroads, or even the new one, everybody knows that there's so much nostalgia there. 45 years, the business has been around. So, as the current business owner, I'm the person that keeps it going, and hopefully we'll make another 45 out of it.
45 years. That's kind of a long time for a business.
It really is a long time for a business. And then, that comes with its own set of challenges, because you look at what it was like in 1977 and what the world was like and what people were like and what the expectations were and labor force and food cost and availability and everything else. And, you look at it now and you see how much has changed. And you look at even the last 3 years, which have felt like 40, with COVID and the staffing shortage and all that stuff. Like everything evolves so fast. It feels like right now. And
that's COVID, man. I felt like 2020 was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So, I joke every once in a while after we went through COVID and then hit the staffing shortage, I moved back to Minot right after the flood happened. So after it was the fall of 2011. So I left Minot for 13 years and went out and explored the world and went to college and figured out who I was and who I wasn't and all those things. And then my parents had offered us a position at Schatz Crossroads with potential ownership over the course of 10 years. Okay. So we came back and the flood had just happened and it was insane, right? So it was the flood and then the oil boom. And my parents were like, okay, here's your keys. And then so, they were there to support, obviously, like they taught us a lot, but they couldn't be there 24/7 because they had other businesses in Fargo. So my parents kind of left my husband and I, and we moved and had a son. And I like to tease with people that like, if we went through the flood and then the oil boom, we should be like exempt from COVID. Right?
Like you got 2 out of the 3. Like, we don't need to do all 3.
No more. Like you business owners that went through the flood and the oil boom, you shouldn't have to go through the stress of COVID, because both of them are equally as catastrophic, right? Yeah. But obviously all the people that went through both of those things, they just became smarter, wiser, more adaptable. And I think it's just a great skill to have as a business owner, to be able to pivot and think on your feet and manage all of those external stresses that you cannot control. No one could control any of those things.
And it changes the business a ton when things like that happen. Everything's so out of your control, out of your hands, like you said. So when you moved back to Minot, then your parents went to Fargo right away and they pretty much just said, here it is, or how did that work?
So my parents opened the Petro in Fargo in 1997. Okay. I graduated high school in 1999. So when they were building the Petro and before they opened it, they were traveling back and forth to Fargo, like in the mid to late 90s, they opened was it 94 or 97? I think it's 94. Sorry. Okay. So they opened the Petro in 94 and then we're going back and forth. In 99, after I left high school and moved away, my sister was already in Fargo. Donnie was already in Fargo. So they set their primary residence in Fargo because they have a truck stop there as well.
Okay, gotcha.
So then, fast forward, they're going back and forth and back and forth. And there was a operations manager while I was gone working at Schatz Crossroads. And so my parents were able to just kind of go back and forth as needed. So
they didn't have to be there the whole time. Okay.
Right. So they were at the Fargo truck stop during that time. And then the opportunity came for us as the previous operations manager was looking to do something else. Okay. So we came back and then had the option for ownership in the future. So then they were just visiting still, you know what I mean? Yep. So like we get there, it's the oil boom post flood, we have less staff. And honestly, we were busy.
Like we were thrown to the wolves. You're like, all right, here we go. I guess we're doing this.
Yeah. And I remember asking my dad, cause I worked in corporate advertising, right? So once I got out of college, it was all about that job title in your business card. And like you start out at one position as, assistant. And then next thing you know, you're like a mid-level and then you're a senior. And then you're, you get these step ups and step and pay. And like, I asked my dad, I'm like, well, what's my job title? And he's like, you'll figure it out. Yeah. Like he's like, I don't really care. Yeah. Like you work at a truck stop. Like who cares what your your job title is? So it was different for me. Like I came with this language that was very like advertising. Like I would say things like, let's take this high level and see where we go. And like,
corporate,
give me the download of what's going on. And these people would look at me like, what is she saying?
Who is this?
Like, what? So there was an adjustment. I think there was an adjustment moving from the city back to Minot too.
Okay. So as far as in the family, then truck stops seem to be kind of a theme. How did that come about? Was it just something that your parents knew?
My mom and dad, I don't know if I have 100% the answer to this question, but my mom and dad started working at the old Crossroads, which at the time I'm going to get in trouble for not knowing all the details, but they were both working there. And I want to say Bud Lindquist owned it and they were trying to take over the restaurant. And if there was like an arrangement to kind of purchase out the restaurant, and it was at the old Wesley's building. So that was the one on the north side of the highway from where we're at now. And they ended up purchasing and taking over the lease on the whole truck stop. They just kind of worked their way into that.
Okay, gotcha.
And then the location that we're at now on the south side of the highway, that came up for sale. And, my dad was always really good about pushing the envelope. Like my dad had these big ideas and not all of them were like the best ideas, which is okay as an entrepreneur. But my mom was very much like she'd put everything into place and she'd keep him reined in and she'd make sure dollar and cents
made. He was the idea man.
Yeah, he was the idea man. And she kind of would rein him in. And there was a lot of times where she was like, but she's just as aggressive in certain areas, like it, in accomplishing things as he was. So they were a very good team.
Okay.
And so they just kept growing, they got to where Minot was really good. And then I think my dad really wanted to, both of them really wanted to expand a little bit more. They knew they could do it. So they had this idea of like expanding and they found a really great location in close to West Fargo off of 94. And I remember when I was little, we looked at several different locations. My dad would talked about, not several, but he had talked about how these different like land plots in different areas had really high traffic that one day truck stops were going to be there. So again, I can't say for sure because I was probably like 6 or 7. But I think they knew they wanted to invest in something else and continue to do what they were doing in Minot.
Well, it's nice that they knew what they were doing in Minot so they could then expand after that.
Yeah.
They kind of had a grasp on the market, right?
They did. They got very involved in the North Dakota Petroleum Marketers and the National Truck Stop of America. And so they were involved in the industry and they were passionate about the industry. They learned the industry on their own. They had a passion for it. A truck stop is really more than one business in one, right? So like our existing truck stop, the Schatz Crossroads, we have the shop, the restaurant, the convenience store, the fuel, we call it the fuel islands, but it's really for us, it's 2 in 1. Like if you go to a regular convenience store, they aren't purchasing bulk diesel. You might have a diesel pump, but
so you guys are purchasing bulk diesel?
Well, yes, we haul our own diesel and we have the storage tanks there. So we have our own fuel truck and a fuel truck driver that we purchase bulk our own fuels and selling it. Right. Yeah. So like most gas stations have some diesel, but they aren't running a high volume of trucks through there. So it takes a different point of sale system, different computer system that can handle those transactions. Plus it takes all the space and the parking and the maintenance and all that stuff. So the pumps alone have to be different. And so that's a fourth category, right? And then we have the deli, which is its own little kind of cosm of business, right? So we have, somebody working in the deli, making deli food for grab and go items and breakfast sandwiches, which are delicious, by the way.
Yep.
So it's a lot of businesses in one. And then with all that property and with all of those elements, we have a full-time maintenance department because we have a lot of fryers and a lot of drains and a lot of, sinks.
Things that need to be fixed.
Yes. And a lot of ceiling tiles, a lot of, it's just, there's no end to the things that, if humans can use it, it will break.
Yeah.
It might break
They'll
on its
break
own.
it. Yeah.
So that, we have all those departments. Plus our office all in one. So we have about 90 people employed at Schatz Crossroads.
That's crazy. Cause you don't think about a lot of times, you go in there to eat at the restaurant or you go fill up with gas, whatever it is. You don't think about the back end. And that's one thing. Maybe it's because I'm in business, but I like to go into businesses. I'm like, how is this place actually staying afloat?
Exactly. And that's become one of my hobbies as well, where it's just like even business models. Sometimes I try to, I'm like, I wonder how they make their money. I wonder what their expenses are, and you just kind of see that because you're, whether you've been in it yourself or you just are a nerd like me, that's like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because I'll walk into a bowling alley and be like, how many bowlers do they need a day to have the shoes, and how much is the shoes and 2 games? So true. Like we were somewhere and there was this, what's that new type of bowling where it's like a little ball? Oh,
do you know what I'm talking about?
I played that in Canada. That's like all they have up there.
Yeah. So we were in the Dominican and they had,
is it like 5-pin? I
don't know what it's called. So my husband, his brother is like, we were kind of tossing out the idea of opening a place like that. And I go into like business mode, which I would have said to anybody, nothing against my brother-in-law or anything. He's wonderful. But like, I was like, oh, well, you better just realize that you're pretty much going to be in the restaurant industry because that pretty much just supplements whatever food and beverages you're selling.
Oh yeah.
So, let's just call it food service now because
how did he feel about that?
I don't think it got to him unless he listens to this. So but I mean, I think it's a really good way to supplement your food and beverage service, but I wouldn't know how you'd make it work financially with the space and the cost and the staff to just do just that. Right. And you'd need food and alcohol for it to be a lot more fun or, other people have figured anyway.
Because if you go there and it's just like,
just
how much money can you make on just people buying 2 games of bowling? That's where it's always interesting to see that. I pretty much do that any business I go into. So it's kind of fun. Yeah. So you mentioned the 4 different aspects you have. How do you balance all that? It's gotta be,
honestly, tough? It's tough. I mean, there's days where I definitely feel like someone, put the shot in the air and it's like, now it's the race to get to the end. So, but I have to admit, like, I could not do it if I didn't have the people in my life that I have. My sister has been instrumental in always supporting me and in the process of being trained how to do my job. She helped me tremendously. Okay. My mom and dad were there for high level advice and support and criticism, which you need. And then, my office staff, my accountant, she's amazing. And my restaurant manager, my heart would be broken if these people were not in my life. I would be like, okay, I'm done. Yeah. I'm going to leave.
And it just goes to show you the team you need.
Oh my gosh. You have to have a team. You have to have a team of people you can trust, a team of people that even they know you're not perfect, they're not perfect, but you guys can manage through it because there's days where it's just tough, right? Where we have a ton of business and all of a sudden we'd have no water or whatever element can happen while you're up and running, right? Especially when you have a 24-hour business.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's insane.
That's got to be difficult because is there any downtime?
Well, yes. I mean, no, but
when it's slower, I guess.
Honestly, for 45 years, Schatz Crossroads was 100% 24 hours, 365 days a year, Christmas, everything.
Yeah.
That we did not close. In fact, it was about 5 years into me running the truck stop before we realized that the doors don't lock. Like there's literally, we don't know where the key is. Like if no, why would you know where a key is if it never shuts, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to park a Bobcat in front of it when we had to replace some things in the electrical and shut down for about 45 minutes. We had literally had to pop.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Block the door. So, you know, a 24-hour business is difficult. You can't do anything that size, A, without delegation, and B, without like support even for your delegation. So that was one of the first things I really tried to do, is get the right managers in place and then the right support for the right managers, because nobody wants 2 a.m. phone calls.
Yeah. Well, that's as I say, you can't run a 24-hour business.
No.
So when would you sleep? Yeah.
Right. And we've been there. And I think most business owners, especially restaurants and bars, it's hard, you know, depending on your management style, to let things go, because things are so much easier when you just take care of it. Right. So you have to be okay. And my dad taught me this. You have to be okay with walking away and knowing that it's not going to be done the way that you are going to do it, but it's going to be stronger because you let somebody else step up. It might, you know, and you got to find that right person. Otherwise it's on you for choosing the wrong one.
How do you find those people?
A lot of begging. I don't know.
Because I've never hired anyone full time. So that's where it's like, how do you find the right fit for a business or a specific role?
You know, there's a lot of luck involved, because you really don't know. As many interviews as I've been through and people that I've hired or have sat in while my managers have hired, it's, you know, you hope that everything they're saying is true.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Right. And so like people teach you not to judge, but I tell my managers and even my family, I'm like, it's okay to judge.
Yeah.
Right. Like if I'm hiring you for something and you're telling me like a story that I'm like, it doesn't really fit. Yeah. You don't really look like the person
making that up.
Yeah. I mean, like, and you don't obviously say it out loud, but like you have to judge, especially when you're assigning them to a position where A, you're not going to be there, B, they're handling money. You know,
you have to be honest.
Yeah. You check their references, you do background checks, and you try, if you can, to talk to somebody who knows them, whether it's a previous employer or a friend of a friend, to get the kind
idea.
If you can. I mean, and luckily we don't have a lot of our main roles coming up for rehire that often. A lot of people have stayed, and we try to treat them really well. Yeah. The best managers, I think, often are promoted from within. And the nice thing about that is that you know who they are. You already have their track record. You know, if they have an issue with XYZ, you already know it. And you can say, well, I know what I'm getting into here. But we have had to hire from outside, and there's times where it's really, really, really great. And there's times where it's great until it's not great.
Yep. And
then there's times where like on day 3, you're like, ugh,
yeah,
you know,
but I feel like you got to work through those things.
Oh yeah. Right? Like, I mean, take the car wash, for example. Like we have a wonderful manager that's been with us since the day we opened. He's amazing. You know, the same thing with our cashier there. Like she's been with us from the day since we opened. Never had met her before the interview. At the interview, I was like, you're wonderful. And then today she's still wonderful. And that's really great. And we're very lucky to have those people. You know, you can hire 10 people and one's going to stay. Yeah. And I think it's a combination, like, you know, it might not be the right place. They might not want to do that kind of job, right? Like somebody was like, well, I actually don't like working in a restaurant.
Yeah. And I think it's a two-way street, whereas they can be the best employee and the best person to interview, but that goes back to you know, treating these people well. That's going to make them stay just as much as them being a good person that you think.
For sure. I read somewhere a long time ago that A's and B's hire A's and B's, and C's, D's, and F's hire C's, D's, and F's, or, you know, so you have to have the right person in the right spot. And that type of person tends to attract those type of people because they want to be around each other. You spend a lot of time at work. I would like to think that who I am, I hire other similar people. Like we don't, people, like we don't all both have to like horses, but like we both have the same work ethic or level of respect.
Yeah.
Or, and I think too, it's like when you get desperate and you have just a body in a management position and you don't want to put yourself in that position instead of, I see that a lot.
Okay.
Where like people in operations in a business or people who want to own a business but not run a business, they'll be like, well, this person's willing to do the job, and the whole organization kind of follows that mindset. And then the owner comes in and is like, what is wrong with this place? You know what I mean? Like, you have to be willing to step in and do it yourself.
I think that's why a lot of businesses can turn the page, become successful when they bring in new leadership. Because like you said, that new leadership is going to start to hire out the people that are like-minded and get the bad culture out, good culture in.
So I think I moved here in 2011. I think it was 2015 until I got like 2 days off in a row. There was many weeks that I worked every single day, and I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
It was my job. It is my job. If something happens tomorrow, all the plans I have for the next day are done, and I'm doing that job. That's my responsibility as a business owner. And I'd like to think that all the staff would know it. Do I want to be there all of tomorrow night? No. So is it going to be beautiful if I am there and everybody's like hugging trees and singing songs? No, it's going to be really, really uncomfortable because that means that something is wrong. Yeah. Right.
But so let's go into that then. Being a business owner, then what is that lifestyle like? Because I know you see online this glamorous lifestyle of a business owner, and I'm on private jets, but what's the reality of being a business owner?
So I had a baby on Friday and went to work on Monday.
Okay. Yeah. That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
Like this last Friday, or are we just talking in general?
No, I'm like, in general.
I was like, that's I good for you. No, I was gonna say congrats, but I think she's just talking in general.
I mean, I look great for just having a baby.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, dude, that's good for you.
No, that's a description. I mean, that's just kind of an analogy where in 2013, I had my daughter.
Okay.
And I worked up until the day before I went in, which was great from my health. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I was capable of doing that, which I'm really grateful for. There's a lot of moms that have issues that they have to be off their feet and stuff like that. But I was able to do that, which was really good because I really needed to be at work.
Yeah.
Went in, had my daughter, it was beautiful. She's healthy and all that stuff. And then I was managing the restaurant at the time, and I just could not be away. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't have the right management in place until about 2015.
Okay.
So once that happened, I was like, wow, I can get away for the weekend, and now my work-life balance is so much better, and I've absolutely been blessed. But, it took me that long to be trained. Right. And it took me that long to figure out the staff and the people and all that stuff. And I feel like I needed to earn my dues, right? So, or pay my dues. Yeah. It was 4 years of, there was fairs where I worked the night shift.
Yeah.
The last day, I don't know if anybody remembers the Aerosmith concert, 2013 or 14 or 15. I can't remember when it was. I got home at 8:30 in the morning, and I went to work at 3 p.m. the day before. My kids were getting up, and I was drinking a glass of wine. It was insane, And so I had worked all night, and that's fine. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I got some sleep, and then I went in later that day, and it's just what I had to do at the time. My mom and dad did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So my mom was
probably, pay your dues.
Yeah, you just pay your dues. And my mom was probably a little bit, I don't want to say worse because it's not a bad quality, but when we were little, they worked a lot. Mm-hmm. And they reminded us that it was to make a better life, right?
Yeah.
And they had a lot invested, so they had to take care of those things that they had invested, and they had to grow, and they had, it's a huge weight when you need to make sure that you pay 90 people every 2 weeks.
That's what I was going to say. It's
when it's insane, when it hits you. It's also a huge weight when you realize if somebody gets hurt or something happens, I tell people, I'm like, we're not Walmart.
Yeah.
We're a mom and pop.
Mm-hmm.
We're liable. It's our stress. It's our guilt. It's the weight on our shoulders.
Can't just go to corporate because you are corporate.
Yeah. Our corporate process is really, really quite.
Okay. So I want to transition a little bit now into, we're talking about the takeover in 2011-ish.
Yep.
What was your thoughts, going in there, taking over a business that has been a staple in the Minot community for, a number of years? Were you nervous?
We had lived in Minneapolis, and I really loved Minneapolis quite a bit. I spent 10 years there. I finished college there, met my husband there, went to a lot of live concerts there and great restaurants and beautiful things. I mean, I really loved Minneapolis. So it was hard on me to leave Minneapolis, as much as I absolutely love Minot, and I enjoyed, how we were raised here. We were raised with horses, and we had space. And after having my son, I was like, we're not ever going to be able to have this stuff right in the heart of the city. Right. Yeah. So I was at this kind of crossroads of, feelings about it. So there was a little bit like, it was a great opportunity. Like when I talked to my dad about it, he just bottom lined it. He's like, you'll never have an opportunity like this again. And I was like,
called a spade a spade.
Yes. Oh, he's such a straight shooter.
Yeah.
So I was like, you are 100% right. Like we knew it.
Yeah.
So, thankfully my husband was just like, my husband had very little knowledge of the truck stops and stuff like that until after we got married, actually. So, he's the most supportive person in the world. He's like, babe, you want to do this? Let's go. Which
is good. You got to have that person in your corner, right?
And then, but like, here's a photographer coming out of Minneapolis, in the creative field, but like the only like guy who could probably change a tire or fix something in the creative field. No offense to that field right now.
I was going to say, I'm in the creative field and I can't do any of those things. I just know how to swing a hammer. That's about all.
No, my husband can tear anything apart and rebuild it. So to be in that field and be raised in the city, like his parents did an amazing job, and he's just got that type of mind to pull something apart and rebuild it. So he's got such a great skill in that role, but he really had no experience at all, running a business, little experience running a business outside of freelance photography. Mm-hmm. And, just the truck stop world in general had very little knowledge of. So we did it. I mean, we just, whoop.
Yeah. Was it a learning process for him then?
Yeah. And then again, like him and my dad had a really good relationship. My dad really liked him, and Nick is he's easy to work with. Like if you don't get along with Nick, you're the problem, not Nick. Like he's a good guy, and he's not loud, and he's a really hard worker. So anyway, we were really excited, but like I remember telling Nick, I'm like, listen, once we get up and we get settled, we'll come back to Minneapolis like every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It took us like 3 years to come back.
Yeah. Like, okay, well now we're up and settled. Yeah. It's been 3 years.
And even now, like if we make it there once or twice a year,
he's from Minneapolis.
He's from Minneapolis. Okay. But after we left, his family moved away.
Okay.
So we until 2015, we really had a hard time leaving Minot in general, just out of the sheer, like we couldn't go. It was too busy. We didn't have the right staff. We were working a lot. It was really hard to leave. Once 2015 kind of rolled around and we had some better management, I started showing horses. We started leaving a little bit more. Our kids were a little bit more mobile. It was easier to leave. We still got the phone calls in the middle of the night while we were gone, but we started to transition out, and it was something my parents kind of pushed for. They're like, you have to get something outside of just work or you'll go crazy.
Burnout. Yeah.
You'll burn out. And that's what they did too. Like for a long time they showed horses. And then when my brother started racing cars, my parents did a lot of racing. And I think it helps balance. Like there's this extreme weight here on your shoulders and responsibility. And you don't really own your own life because everybody kind of owns it for you if they need something or want something, or if you have to fix something. So when you go away, it's really nice to be like, I'm not there, you know? So you're like, it helps, but then you're back. And I think too, it's good to get out of Minot.
Oh yeah. You got to go out there and see. I mean,
the world is so big.
So many people not get trapped in Minot, but I make it an emphasis to take a few trips every single year just to go out there. I have a friend trip. I go to Vegas with my dad. I go on another friend trip, a family trip, usually once a year, and getting out there and seeing things. It does. And then you come back to Minot and you feel a little bit more like, oh, Minot feels new again. It feels fresh again.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I completely agree. If you can take a trip, and it doesn't matter where, there's a lot of great things in North Dakota. I don't care if you have to drive to
Medora is awesome.
Yeah, Medora or, go up to the Peace Gardens or whatever. Just leave town for 2 days.
Go to Burlington.
I would, maybe a little further than Burlington. Do they have a place to stay if you want to go to Burlington?
Maybe.
Go camp in Burlington.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we talked about Schatz for quite a while here. Fastlane Car Wash. How did that come about? What's the story of that? When did that start?
Fastlane Car Wash is a second location for their primary location, which is in Fargo.
Okay.
It is actually owned by my brother, Donnie Schatz. So they wanted to build a car wash here in Minot. Nick and I lived here, so we run that location for them. So a lot of fun. It was the first time that we took kind of the knowledge we had from working in the truck stop and applied it to opening a new business. The nice thing is that, for Donnie and my mom and dad, Danny and Diane, they already had that model. So they knew what they wanted to change and they knew what they wanted to add in the second location. So we got that structure from them. And then they had 2 people who already had a operating business, running that. You really have to be where your business is, or you have to spend quite a bit of time there if you're remote, right? You have to have a commitment to be there and see what's going on with the staff and who the staff is.
Instead of, I haven't been there in 6 weeks.
Exactly. Or a year, so it worked out really well for them to have us here. And, we jumped right in. My husband learned a lot about the equipment and, the maintenance required for it, because a car wash is like a giant dishwasher.
I suppose, yeah.
It's insane. So, and that's one of the things where I had, similar to the restaurant where people are like, oh, I think it'd be great to have a little restaurant. And I'm like, oh, you're crazy.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people say, I think the car wash business would be really good. I think that's something I could do. And
because they watched Breaking Bad and they saw him laundering all that money.
Oh, really? I've never seen it, so I don't even know.
Oh, there you go.
So, we learned a lot about the point of sale, and then there's a lot to learn about that customer that's different than the customer at the truck stop.
That's what I was going to ask. What's the difference? Excuse me. What's the difference between, the people that are coming to the car wash and the truck stop? How do you manage that?
So this has been on my mind a lot lately. I feel like when people tell me they want to, or they mention that they want to start this kind of business, I almost want to tell them start with the customer first. Understand who the customer is and how they act about what you're selling, or how they react to what you're selling, what they like, what the things that could go wrong. Because when we went into the car wash business, and it's not bad, it's just something that isn't available at the truck stop, but our price point is $13, $16, and $19. And I saw alarming responses to people who thought, their car had been damaged or something like that for $16. And I was like, wow, we sell hundreds of dollars in fuel. And if there's something wrong, people are calm. But if they think they got wronged about $16 car wash, they're like,
okay. Yeah. So it's a different mentality.
Exactly. I mean, and maybe I'm explaining that incorrectly, but it's just, I think every business has a different customer, and the customer has a response when things go wrong. You have your standard responses when there's something like an error in a restaurant. It's going to be the wrong food, cold food, bad service, wait times. Those are standard. I'm talking not in our restaurant, just in restaurants in general, right? Think about all the things you could complain about if you went to a restaurant and wasn't happy with your experience.
We call it the Bennett effect in our family. We go to if you go to a fast food place or anything, there's always going to be one thing that's messed up.
You're one of those people, right?
It doesn't ever happen to me, but it seems to happen to my dad a lot. And he'll go there and simple order, hey, I need a Whopper Junior with cheese. Be missing the cheese or something. It's every time.
Unlucky.
But, so I just give it to him it's a Bennett effect.
Right. And so it was a new experience for me to realize that because I had not been in the car wash business before. So now I'm learning things about the car wash business that are standard to that business, the places where things go wrong, right? You can be incorrectly charged. You can, damage is a big one. Mm-hmm. And we could spend a whole podcast talking about car wash damage. So there's, I will say this. I see a lot of people look at their car after it goes through a car wash, and I see nobody look at their car before.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, and it makes sense, right? So when you're looking, you're finding. When you're not looking, you're not finding.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that damage doesn't happen in any car wash ever.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there's a lot of perception that damage happens in car washes. And when I talk to people about this, the number one thing they say, well, where else could it come from?
Yeah.
And I'm like, again, doesn't mean it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, your kid could have borrowed it. You could have drug a hose across it. You could have set your purse on it. You could have, you know what I mean? You could have been off-roading. You could have went to a bonfire and brushed up against a tree. Drive into a deer and I gotta go through the car wash now. Exactly. So, I mean, that was a learning curve for me in the car wash business, is just that's your biggest, if something goes wrong, it's that. Yeah. Or your equipment, right? So your equipment, soap is very corrosive. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how corrosive soap was. It will eat everything. It'll eat plastic. It'll eat concrete. It'll eat metal. It'll eat everything.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Soap does an excellent job of cleaning.
Yeah.
So therefore it doesn't
clean it until it's gone.
Yeah. So like soap is very corrosive. So it's a high maintenance operation. Nozzles are always being replaced. You have water and electrical in the same area. That's always an interesting gamble, right? So it was a lot of a learning curve on that. The staff is, they're wonderful. It's a tipped position, and it should be. I think the guys work really hard. It's very labor intensive. But for the most part, we're selling one thing.
Yeah.
Car washes.
Yeah.
We're not selling car washes and hamburgers. It's just car washes. And I love that about the car wash.
Is it easier to just hone in on one thing, sell one thing?
I don't know. I mean, if that's your business model and you can do a high volume of it, then I'd say yes.
Okay.
But at the truck stop, it's kind of the long haul, right? Like it's convenience, and
you almost need it all there.
It's awesome to have it all
Every
there.
time I get gas, I need a box of Mike and Ike's with it.
Mike and Ike's, you need a sandwich, you need, and so it's a one-stop shop. We try to sell as much as we can. So, I mean, it makes sense. Should we sell some more stuff at the car wash? We certainly could do additional things. Like, it was a business decision not to have vacuums.
Okay.
It was a business decision not to have an interior clean. So it's just the model that we have, and we went with what we went. And I'm not saying vacuums are terrible, but I know why they didn't want to do them. And
so just figure out the model that works best for you. We are going to pivot now into your next business venture. But before we do that, we're going to hear from this week's sponsor, Midco. Is your business moving up and to the right? Put Midco's business technology to work for you so you never have a slow day at the office. From premium internet and phone plans to custom private networking and advertising, they have a solution for every type of business, large or small. Get paired with an account representative to create your suite of services and make the switch with ease with dedicated business client fulfillment and support teams. No data caps, flexible contracts with month-to-month or long-term options, built-in DDoS protection, and more. Explore services and request a free consultation at midco.com/business today. I've been using Midco ever since I started my business. Been sending things through to the cloud, through the internet, use their gig internet. So I've always been happy with their service. If you guys are looking to check that out, go to midco.com/business. All right, Krista, let's get back into the next business venture now. We're going through it all. Earnest Academy. Give me the rundown on how this came about and, the whole structure of that.
Okay, so the elevator pitch about Earnest Academy was the Earnest Elite Academy was located over by, it's in Southeast Minot, or was in Southeast Minot, close to where we live. We drove by every day. We always saw these vehicles out there. My son started playing basketball in the 5th grade, which I didn't know at the time, but is very late. He was a very late starter. Extremely late in the 5th grade. Okay.
When do they usually start?
Like in kindergarten, first grade.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're now
when I have kids, I'll make sure to get them in early.
Now you know. So yeah, get them in early, get them in often. So anyway, we started bringing my son there, and the instant my son agreed to it, which we had been trying to get him to go there, and he's like, "No, Mom, I don't want to play basketball. I want to do science." And I'm like, Like who can say no to that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, he wants to play school ball. So we thought, okay, you need to learn the basics. So let's take him to Earnest. We walk in. It was 2020, so it was pretty quiet. And my daughter was with us, and she's game for everything, literally. So she's like, well, if he's going to go, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So then they both start, and then she just like took off lickety split, right? And they both loved it.
Okay.
And, as a parent sitting there, I was like, more parents should come and just audit this.
Yeah.
Because he tells it like it is. He's super motivating, very honest, very inspiring. And it's like, it's the opposite of, the cliche participation award. Like he just gives it to him straight. And it's like, you need to work harder.
Yeah.
Like here is reality. Like here is this, like this, I'm not doing this fair thing.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. You work hard, you grow, you get rewarded for it thing. And for me as a business owner, I was like, wow, what a reality check.
It's good getting rewarded for your hard work rather than the whole participation trophy.
And I get it. I get why like some schools do just fair amount of playing time.
Yeah.
And that's their choice. And I'm not here to debate that. We're a family. The Schatz family is a family of competitors, right? I compete in horses. My brother's a race car driver. We are very competitive in business. The three of us kids are very competitive against each other.
Yeah.
So naturally, when we start playing basketball with the kids and we see this thing with Earnest, we were like,
this is perfect.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, we can stand behind this. Like, this is great. Ernest had asked us about getting a bigger space. He was really out of space for the number of kids that was there. We kind of just at first responded like, yeah, if we find anything, we'll let you know. My mom and dad have a commercial development, property development out in Southeast Minot. So they have this development called Southeast Ridge. My dad was also involved in commercial real estate, developing.
Okay.
So we ended up building this academy. We partnered with Earnest. My husband and I partnered with Earnest, and we got organized and we created a business plan and we launched this basketball academy together. And, it's the first time that I have gone outside of the family to partner with somebody. My husband and I are actually partners. What
was that like, partnering outside of the family?
It was scary. Yeah. I think it was scary for him and it was scary for me because, you only know somebody so well. Right. Yeah. Your family, really well.
Like you're at Christmas with them.
Yeah. But somebody outside your family, he only knew me so well and I only knew him so well. So it was a lot of planning in the forefront. And I think some of it was a lot of like fingers crossed and I hope it doesn't go bad and it hasn't. Like I have to say, and I've said this multiple times, but like, it's better than I thought it would be. Yeah. Like Ernest is very honest with me. Ernest works very hard and he has a super good method of training. Yeah. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect. Nobody's perfect in this world, but he does a really good job of training those kids and he literally lives and breathes basketball. Yeah. So no one's coming to my basketball academy because I don't, you know what I mean? I didn't have that skill, but the skill that I bring to the table is operations, right? So picking the platform, running the platform, getting organized when it comes to our classes and our programs and how we charge for it and having a even playing field for everybody and organizing teams and all that stuff. So, it works really well. I think we have a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work just because it's a new business for me. So I've had to learn a lot about the customer again. And when it goes wrong, what is it that's going wrong? Right. And how to deal with that and what that means again, starting with the customer. Yeah.
Cause I was going to say you're in 3 now. It's okay, let's go. Carlos, let's do basketball.
Now we're at, sports parents.
Yep. Which is, that's a
whole nother can of worms. Yes. So I mean, and they're great, right? I'm a sports parent. So it's really an interesting dynamic because there's just a lot to it, right? We all want our kids to be great. We all see the things behind, where our kid is coming from. Like we can see the insights that coaches can't see. They're not feeling well, or, you know, they're trying really hard and all that stuff. So it gets tough at times, you know, but it's really great. The family over at Earnest Academy, again, that is really wonderful. All the people that are involved that I've interacted with so far, it is a really great thing. And I think it's a really great thing in Minot. I think sports in general in our area are really good for kids.
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate for kids working in high school, right? Because like, again, being in the restaurant industry, like, I'm not sure how you grew up, but like I grew up, everybody had a restaurant job at some point, right? Yeah. Or you worked for like a nursery.
I worked at a golf course personally.
You work at a golf.
Exactly.
Clubs. So I'm big on kids working at that age towards the end of high school.
Yeah.
Because I think it teaches responsibility, right? Like 1% of the kids that are playing sports in high school or youth sports or whatever, 1% is going to go on to do whatever. So we need kids in the workforce. Everybody needs to have that retail job or restaurant job or golf course or maintenance or, you know, lawn care or whatever. And so I kind of ride both lines where it's like, I think it's good for kids to work. I think it's good for kids to play sports as well.
Oh yeah. And you can do both.
You can to some degree.
Sport athlete, maybe then it gets a little hard. But.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little tough as an employer to employ kids in sports because their availability is so limited. So then putting them on a schedule is very difficult.
Oh, you get 2 hours on
Thursday.
Yeah.
And by the way, we need to go to church on Sunday morning. You know what I mean? Like, so it gets a little bit difficult, but I think one or the other is good. And I think, you know, if it's in the off season to pick up a job, either cashiering or busing or, you know, being a dishwasher, I think I hope other parents feel as strong about that as I do. Yeah. Mostly because I'm employing people.
Yeah. You're like, guys, you should be working. You should be working for me.
I mean, and like and we talked about how businesses have changed over the years. Like I think about when I worked at the truck stop in the 90s growing up, there was a lot of high school kids that did dishwashing and cooking. Yeah. And now there's so many fewer, you know, and like when we reach the staffing shortage, right? Like who does these jobs? Like who works at Burger King and McDonald's and all those things? And we've all witnessed it, right? Here in Minot, like there's businesses that have had to close, ours included, for staffing issues. Yeah. And like people fill those roles and some of those roles were largely filled by, you know, the youth.
Yeah. Now they just want to be famous on TikTok.
I know, right? Now we've got to compete with TikTok earnings, right? So it's not just sports, it's TikTok.
You got it. Yeah. Keeping
phones out of the workplace. That's another podcast.
Yeah. I'm sure you could do a long one on that.
Well,
a little difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll happen though. That'll happen. So talking a little bit now, you got the 3 avenues. We're going into a 4th avenue.
Yes.
This one you said is still on the brink of becoming the next big thing, right?
So Slideshow Creative, Nick and I started this last year. We're dabbling in it as we can, but both with very creative backgrounds. I did design and digital, you know, and advertising, and my husband is an amazing photographer. He does great portrait work. He's just really, really creative, probably 10 times more creative than I am. Yeah. He definitely gets like does this look good? And I genuinely am looking for his specific feedback because he's got extremely good taste, obviously. But, we are doing, you know, small videos, ads, creative production. Social media is a really big part of business. Yeah. And social media comes and goes so quickly. So a lot of businesses need assets for that they can manage themselves, right? Yeah. I mean, we've got AI writing copy for us.
Oh yeah. It's crazy.
It's amazing.
The questions for this podcast were from ChatGPT.
Great.
I mean, I
appreciate that. No,
but it's crazy what it can do.
Yeah, I mean, and so, I mean, will this be a big adventure for us? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
But
it's fun that it's on the verge of maybe.
And a lot of them are pet projects, right? Yeah. So like if we want to do something that focuses on promoting a business that's like an equine business, we have the means to do that, and we want to pick that and add that into the mix. Yeah. We have a small studio, and that's nice too. I mean, even if we just create our own ads, whether it's for Schatz Crossroads or Fastlane we do a lot of that just for ourselves, and it's needed. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are in business that don't have the tech savvy, like
well, it's crazy
ability.
Especially you mentioned social media being so important. You would think majority of people are doing that, but it's still,
definitely
maybe
not.
it's just this area, but still people, aren't utilizing it to its full capabilities.
No, not at all. And it's completely it's really cost effective.
Yeah.
And like at Schatz Crossroads too, like we have traditionally gone with a lot of radio advertising, and we do a lot of billboards and this and that. And I have advertisers that come all the time, and they're salespeople. So I get it, right? That's their job. And they should come to a bigger business in Minot, and say, hey, I want to sell you all these spots on the radio. And it's so unfortunate that I'm just like, because I know it's not where it used to be.
Yeah. Which it made a lot more sense back then.
Oh, 100% agree. Now it's so much more saturated. And diluted. So it's like, there's areas where it's appropriate and there's areas where it's not. And I do think that there's still a lot of people in Minot that watch TV and listen to radio. But that's a lot less than it was.
Yeah. Because it used to be the number one thing, where now the playing field is a little bit more even. So a couple more questions here for you, and then I'll let you get out of here. But looking back at your journey thus far, what's something that you wish you knew at the beginning that you know now?
I think in the beginning, I wish I would have had a better understanding on how long it takes to really learn a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in the beginning I thought, okay, I'm familiar with this business. I grew up in this business and I understand the concept of it, and that's really great. But I think I just didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah. Right. So then I started learning and I'm like, wow, I'm really dumb.
Maybe I was going to say, be willing to learn, but that does go through your mind.
Just, I think that comes back to patience. I am a very driven, eager, willing to work person.
Yeah.
And so I can be like, I hit it full force when I think I've learned to kind of like slow down and realize, especially as I approach this Earnest Academy project, like I think I realize now that this is just month 4, right? Or month 5.
Yeah.
And it's going to be 3 years before all this stuff gets kind of settled out. And I know before we really know. And so I think, I wish somebody would have just, maybe reminded, and I think my parents did a lot. Yeah. I mean, life just teaches you patience. But I think that's it. Just not getting overwhelmed.
There's our reminder for the people listening. Just remember, things might take a little bit longer than you think they will.
Absolutely.
Okay, Krista, last question I got for you then. Mount Rushmore of business advice. If you had to pick 4 things you could tell whoever's listening, whether it's someone that's just starting a business, they're in business, what would be those 4 points that you would tell them?
Number 1, really know your customer, and really, really do make your decisions to serve that customer, or create some very clear boundaries of what you do and don't serve. I think a lot of people just underestimate what it takes to serve that customer and what the feedback from that customer is going to be. Number 2, I think I'm a strong believer that you have to fill every role. Like, you have to know what you're doing in every role. If you don't 100% know, like, I can't be a basketball coach. I could be a basketball coach, but would I be a good one? Not for more than about an hour. Yeah. Right. But like when you're in the restaurant or the car wash, you have to know every single role, whether it's the accountant, the HR payroll person, your housekeeping department, your dishwasher, your cook. You have to know all those roles. Like, you can't, I'm not a big, I don't have a lot of trust in people who want to own something and manage it or have somebody else manage it. And I've just learned that from my experience. Like, I don't know how it gets done, but maybe they have a quality I don't. Yeah. Well, you have to, it's not that you have to do those rules, but you have to at least know how, in case the time comes up where it's like, okay, I need to. Well, and you have to be willing to do it. And I think with that and knowing it all, I think you also have to be, I think you have to have the right amount of management. Some things, some days do need to be micromanaged, but you have to let other people manage too. Yeah. You just cannot do it all, or you'll end up in burnout. Yeah. You'll make bad decisions. So there's 2. Is that 2 or is that 3? Let's go 3. Okay. One more. I will make you give me one more. One more. I think it helps if, I think it helps if you have a good personality, and in general, you're a likable person, right? Because like nobody wants to work for an asshole.
No, exactly. Everyone has the bad stories about their bad boss.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's days where I've been a not so nice person when I've hit my limit. But I think for the most part, if don't do it if you don't like people. Yeah. And there's definitely, there's people who will flat out tell you, I'm not a people person, and they need a different role. Yeah.
Which is, get them in a spot where they don't necessarily have to be the most people person.
Yeah.
People
person.
That'll work.
I would say in running a business though, to go back to your question, I think that, being able to relate with people and understand them and be fair with them, likable.
Yeah, it really helps. And it's not like you have to be, the most outgoing, likable person on earth. Yeah. You have to at least relate with these people a little bit. Krista, thank you very much for coming on the show. Where can people find you? I know there's a lot of different links, but this is your time. This is your time to pitch.
Right. My time to pitch. SchatzCrossroads.com, where you can check us out, order food online and pick it up and go. We have really, really, really great ranch dressing and 99s. Yep. So FastlaneCarwash.com, Fastlane Minot. Yeah.
Well, and all the links will be in the
all the links will be earnestacademy.org. Go ahead.
Some little ones.
Yeah. If you got little ones, check it out. I highly recommend our summer camps that are coming up. We have 2-week intensive summer camps. Other than that, you can track me down at the truck stop most days, or on the social media, I guess.
Perfect. All of those links will be in the description. You can check them all out. It's going to be a longer list than usual, but that's it's exciting. Krista, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
That's episode 48 of the Minot Business Podcast. Thank you guys again for listening. Please leave a rating and a review if you have not done that already. We'll see you guys next week for episode 49.